a race team saw that I had a lot of road course experience and they needed a driver for that race. A lot of small teams in NASCAR will rotate drivers throughout the season. And so they called me up and said, hey, we want to have you in our car at Road America. And that was really the start of my NASCAR career. And actually, it was me more banging at their door. I actually sent them a Facebook message because I believe it or not, I saw the entry list for the NASCAR race at Road America. It was like a Wednesday before the race. And the race was on a Saturday. And one team had both of their cars listed as to be announced. So I said, what the heck? I'm going to, shoot my shot. I'm going to send them a Facebook message. I sent them a Facebook message, let them know. I said, hey, I've raced at Road America. I have thousands of laps here. It's my home track. If you need a driver last minute, please call me. And the next day they called me on Thursday. So
welcome, Josh Bilicki, to the Athletes Doing Good podcast. We are so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you have quite an interesting journey, I think. And as one of a few NASCAR drivers that manages his own sponsorships and partnership deals is also super interesting. But we also just think, a career at such a high level in any professional sport is such an achievement. And we would love to start with just what or who inspired you to pursue that route in your career as a high-level professional athlete?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It's a lot of hard work because a lot of people see what I do on the racetrack, but they don't see what I do behind the scenes to get to the racetrack. Mm-hmm. And I don't come from family money, so I have to really dig deep to find the budget to go racing because it's not a cheap sport, and I think anybody will tell you that. So, what got my interest in motorsports was honestly my dad. My dad's always been a big racing fan, and he decided to build a race car, the year I was born in '95. So he built a vintage race car, a Mustang, a 1965 Mustang, just for him to go out there and have fun in at tracks like Road America, Blackhawk Farms, and Beloit. And so I've been going to the racetrack since I was a baby, honestly. So I would sit in his race car and make race car noises, and I think that he saw that I loved anything with a motor. And I think I was like 4 years old, and my parents had signed me up for T-ball, and I would make race car noises as I ran the bases. So I think that was like a telltale sign of my parents. All right, maybe we should buy him a go-kart. So Christmas of '99, my parents bought me my first go-kart, and that was it. I was hooked. I don't really remember ever wanting to do anything else. I've been very blessed with parents that supported me and took me through basically the amateur ranks in car racing. I was 16, 17. And then at that time, it was very obvious that my family money couldn't take me to the next level. So I'd have to work really hard to find sponsors, and just right place, right time, right people in my life helped me get to the next step in pro racing. And that was all road course racing, which I'm in NASCAR now, which is mainly circle track racing. And so I graduated Slinger High School. What's ironic is I've never raced a Slinger Speedway in my life. I have about 10 laps. Yes. So people think I'm in NASCAR. I grew up racing at short tracks, the Slinger Speedways, Jefferson Speedway, but I've never really raced at any of those. I've raced at Jefferson a handful of times after my NASCAR career started. But NASCAR goes to a handful of road courses a year. When I say a road course, I mean a track like Road America, which has left and right turns, as opposed to Milwaukee Mile, which is just a big circle. And a race team saw that I had a lot of road course experience, and they needed a driver for that race. A lot of small teams in NASCAR will rotate drivers throughout the season. And so they called me up and said, hey, we want to have you in our car at Road America. And that was really the start of my NASCAR career. And actually, it was me more banging at their door. I actually sent them a Facebook message because I believe it or not, I saw the entry list for the NASCAR race at Road America. It was like a Wednesday before the race, and the race was on a Saturday. And one team had both of their cars listed as to be announced. So I said, what the heck? I'm going to, shoot my shot. I'm going to send them a Facebook message. I sent them a Facebook message, let them know. I said, hey, I've raced at Road America. I have thousands of laps here. It's my home track. If you need a driver last minute, please call me. And the next day they called me on Thursday. So that was the intro to my NASCAR start. Since then, I've raced almost 200 times in NASCAR, so I'm very blessed.
Wow. I don't think a lot of people understand. You talked about some of the go-karting and the older car models, and the ARCA and the truck and the to get to where you are in Xfinity and in NASCAR, like there's a lot of steps.
There are a lot of steps. I mean, NASCAR doesn't just approve, the guy that's racing at Slinger, even though he might have a lot of championships, they're not going to approve him right away for Daytona. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through. I was very lucky. I raced a series in sports car racing called IMSA that's owned by NASCAR. So all my paperwork for the license transferred really quickly. After I raced Road America, I got approved for 1 mile tracks. Then I raced a 1 mile. Then I got approved for a 1.5 mile track. Then I got approved for the Cup Series. So I made my first Cup start in 2017. The year after, I made my first NASCAR Xfinity Series start. But yeah, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. And then obviously you need to find the budget to go racing too. So I was very lucky that I had a sponsor that bought me basically 4 sets of tires for the race weekend. But at $2,500 a set, they add up. It costs a lot of money to go race. Tens of thousands of dollars for some of the small teams, and for some of the big teams, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So not only do you need to work hard, in NASCAR to make sure everything's taken care of, but behind that, you have to make sure you can get to the racetrack and afford it too.
I think, sorry, Danica, I'm just going to jump in really quick. Yep. I think too, the athletic side of driving is that, and the mental side of driving. I truly don't think that people appreciate the amount of work that you have to do off the track in order to be ready.
100%. And that's something to where when I was racing road courses, I'll be the first to admit, I thought NASCAR looked easy. I thought it looked a little boring. And I jumped into the deep end my first NASCAR race. My first circle track ever really was in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Phoenix. It was the second last race of the season. And so you have your championship going, you have your playoffs going. And here's me. I've never really raced an oval before, never raced a car this heavy, this much power. And I'm just thrown into it with a small team. And I mean, the race was 3 hours. So you need to have endurance. You don't need pure strength and muscle to drive these cars, but you need endurance, much like running or riding a bike. And at the same time, you are racing for 3 hours. You'll have your cautions, and now we have stage breaks, which help break the race up. But you will have, stretches where you're racing for an hour straight. And one mental slip up can cost you a position or 2 or 3 or 4 positions. But vice versa, too. The guy that you're racing could have a mental slip up and you could gain a position. So, yeah, I mean, the more you do it, the easier it gets. There's really nothing that prepares you for racing in NASCAR like racing in NASCAR. But yeah, a lot of people look at NASCAR and say all they do is turn left, and that's not the case. We're always on the edge. We're always on the edge of what the car can grip, what the tires can grip, and one small mistake or one small slip up or just pushing a little bit too hard, driving too hard into the corner, is the difference to bringing the car home clean or bringing the car home on a wrecker.
Yeah, I was really going to ask like the same thing because I think it's so interesting. Like people just see, you can look at like a basketball player and be like, well, he's going to go, shoot hoops and do the things he needs to do to practice and get better at his sport. And then you see someone who drives race cars and you're like, well, he's just going to practice driving, right? But there's so much more than that. Do you have like mental practices that you work on to prepare for those races, or physical things that you do to prepare for those races?
Yeah, so one thing that's really unique is NASCAR actually limits our testing, and there are really no opportunities for us to drive the cars that we race on Saturdays and Sundays prior to the race weekends. I think there's only 2 or 3 NASCAR official tests. So if I want to drive a race car during the week, it needs to be something non-NASCAR related. And I'm a firm believer that driving any kind of race car helps. I mean, it's all the same at the end of the day. There are 4 wheels and an engine. But my preparation is a lot of endurance training, especially my road bike or my Peloton in my basement, just making sure I have endurance. But also, it sounds silly, but my go-kart. I have a go-kart that I still go out to Badger Kart Club in Dousman, Wisconsin. I try to go every single week and just try to run as many laps as I can. If it's 30 minutes or 40 minutes, the go-kart it's much like NASCAR, to where people probably think it's not as physical or endurance as as what people think. But my shifter kart will go almost 100 miles per hour. I mean, it'll go over 100 miles per hour depending on the track, and it'll go 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. So they're very fast, very physically demanding. 30 minutes in my shifter kart will probably strain me just as much as 2 hours in my race car. So I try to go out there every week and just run as many laps. If it's an hour straight or 2 hours straight. Actually, the field can't go 2 hours because they're so small, but just run as many laps as I can. That's really the closest thing I can get to being in the race car. So between that and just really, making sure I train by riding my bike or running, making sure that I have the endurance.
What type of driver are you on the actual roads?
I get my
critical.
No, I get my fair share of road rage. I'll be the first to admit I'm not the guy doing 120 miles per hour on the highway. I get more scared driving on the street than I do in my race car, because my race car is safe. My race car has a roll cage that if I hit a wall, the roll cage is not going to crush. If I get in an accident with my street car and go in the ditch, the car can crush. And so, I'm your 10 miles per hour over the speed limit guy. If you're in the left lane and you're going exactly the speed limit, I may tailgate you a little bit, and I may call you a couple cuss words. I definitely get my fair share of road rage, but I'm not the guy that's going to drive by you and give you the finger or cut you off. I think I'm a pretty good driver on the street. I've had a couple speeding tickets, many years ago. When I first got my license, I may or may not have lost my license. But I've calmed down. I've calmed down since then.
Learned your lesson.
I did.
That is awesome. Well, we want to talk to you a little bit. We want to talk to you a little bit about what you do off the track, because and actually you bring it onto the track with the charitable work that you do, from everything from having it a part of your car and being able to do things in the community. We'd love to learn a little bit more about that part of your life and why you feel it's so important.
Yeah. So since my time in NASCAR in 2016, I've been very fortunate to give back to the community. And I have so many people that give to me and support my career. I think it's the very least I can do to give back to individuals who need it. And I've worked with many nonprofits and many charities in my time. And four that really come to mind are one is a company that you work with, which is Lemons of Love. Jill has been really great to me, but she's really great at what she does and giving back. And if you guys don't know, Lemons of Love basically creates chemo care packages for people going through chemo. And I've been very blessed. I've never had to use her package. But from my understanding, you lose a lot of senses. So she creates these packages that have a lot of lemon flavors in them. And she donates them to hospitals and people that are going through cancer and chemo. So another one that I've worked with is Make-A-Wish. I've worked with the local Make-A-Wish organization, basically just donating race suits and donating my time to try to raise money. Special Olympics and Susan G. Komen as well. I've had a sponsor, a Rockford company that has donated space on a race car to showcase both these companies and just try to raise money and try to raise awareness for them. So it's a big part of what I do. I really try to focus on Lemons of Love. I mean, Jill's been really great to me, and she's local. And I've had sponsors that have supported her too. So it's really cool, and it was really cool to hear your involvement with her too.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, they are so wonderful. And we always see too, very commonly, when these athletes are doing things in the community, giving back, so often they find such a reward in return, not just what they're doing with youth or volunteer work, but it's so impactful to them too. Have there been any moments that really stand out to you when you're, either working with Lemons of Love or a Make-A-Wish experience or something like that?
Yeah, I think having some of their guests at the racetrack, whether they have gone through the process of chemo or not, maybe they had fought and won the battle, and just an extra little prize they get is coming to the racetrack and seeing the joy, but also hearing their story. At the end of the day, I'm very blessed. I've never had to experience that, and it just makes me feel lucky, but it makes me feel really good that I can give them an experience at the racetrack and show them something that, you can't just go out and buy. And Jill and Lemons of Love provides that for them.
What are some projects that you're working on, or some things that you have coming up in the race world or off the track?
Well, right now I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a race. My season starts really early. I don't have much of an off season. Honestly, my season ends. I had a race in early December, and 1 month we're back at it. We're in Oklahoma for the whole week. So, and then Daytona is right around the corner, essentially a month and 10 days away. So, I'm very busy right now. We joke around, but our off season is probably busier than during the season, especially behind the scenes, just making sure everything's lined up. So I'm always working on projects, but right now I'm just in full preparation mode before the season.
How many races, for those that aren't as familiar with NASCAR, how many races do you typically do in a season?
So my time in NASCAR is a little bit unique. It's all sponsorship driven. And unfortunately, this year I just didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle lined up. So I'll run about 20 to 25 NASCAR races this year. And I'll also end up running probably 20 to 30 races elsewhere. So non-NASCAR sanctioned events. And a lot of those are going to be local dirt track races, some local sports car races. So last year we ran almost 40 races. This year my goal is to run 45 to 50. And I've had those seasons before, and I wouldn't change them. I want to race something every single weekend that I can, every single weekday that I can. If I can go out to the go-kart track, I'm a racer, and that's what I love.
Logistically, you're traveling all across the country for these races. So what is it? I mean, a typical week, I guess. Is there one?
No, especially for me. So most NASCAR drivers live in that Charlotte area, where most of our teams are. And the team that I drive for in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, they're actually based out of Florida, and I'm based in Wisconsin yet. I didn't move. And the reason I didn't move is because a lot of my sponsors, a lot of my partners are local Midwest partners, and it's just beneficial for me to be here. So if I need to go meet with them or promote them, it's just easier for me to do. And with my race team in Florida, it doesn't make sense for me to move to Charlotte. So my situation is pretty unique. A lot of drivers that are in Charlotte, their teams will charter a plane. They go to the plane. They don't need to have check-in, and it's really easy for them to get to the racetrack. My situation is a little bit unique. So usually on Thursday or Friday, I fly out of O'Hare because Milwaukee is usually a layover at O'Hare anyways, and you're going to get an extra hour, 2 hours there. So I might as well just drive. So Thursday or Friday is my travel day. We have Friday. Sometimes we have practice on Fridays. If I'm racing in the Cup Series, our practice will be Saturday, Sunday. If I'm racing in the Xfinity Series, practice is Friday. Then we race on Saturday. And then I come home. If I can catch a late flight Saturday or Sunday night, I will. If not, I'm home Sunday or Monday. And then basically just regrouping, closing the weekend, and then just focusing on the following weekend. And meanwhile, I'm trying to find more sponsors and more partners. So I'm trying to find time for that. But I'm also trying to be a race car driver and prep for the race weekend, which, we don't just show up to track and go to practice. Our race prep begins weeks prior to the actual race weekend. Right now I'm prepping for Daytona, and it's 40 days away. Daytona is one of our easier tracks, so it might not take as much prep. But when we go to a track like Circuit of the Americas in Texas that has 20 plus corners, that prep work is hours and hours of studying YouTube footage and footage of my old races. So there's a lot behind the scenes that my entire week is full.
Yeah. Go ahead, Danica. I lost Danica there for a second.
Questions.
We have one final one. We'll have one final one that we ask all of our athletes. It's a really good one. What does athletes doing good mean to you?
Athletes that give back. I think that we're all very fortunate to do what we love for a living. But I think true happiness is giving back and finding ways to give back to the community, to people that give to us, whether it's nonprofits or charities, just, dedicating time. We're so blessed. Like I said, we have so many people that give to us. So how can we give back to the community and make the world a better place?
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. We certainly appreciate it.
You're welcome.